Well, everyone's been out here focusing on the coronavirus news. One story which really slipped under everybody's radar is the fact that yesterday oil prices spiked nearly 24% to $25 a barrel, rebounding from Wednesday's 18-year low. Now, part of the reason why this happened is not in any way good. It is because now the United States is considering intervention in the Russia Saudi oil standoff. Now, the sort of background behind this dispute is that a 3-year contract between Russia and Saudi Arabia recently ended, in which they were suppressing their sort of output in order to keep the prices high. Now, towards the end of this contract, Saudi Arabia came to Russia with an OPEC backed deal, which Russia rejected because they didn't think the terms were good enough for them. Now, then the pandemic struck, and demand fell off a cliff in China, and Saudi Arabia saw an opening to expand their market share. So they completely were flooding the market, hoping to, drive a bunch of people out of business and, expand their market share. And initially, of course, this was hurting Russia, but then Russia decided that's it. I'm, no holds bars. I'm going to respond as well. And so they began pumping out as much oil as possible as well and slashing prices. Now, where does this bring in the United States? Well, obviously, as you know, there's a lot of domestic oil producers in the United States who are now very worried that they cannot compete with these new low prices. Prices have fallen off a cliff nearly 60% compared to this time last year. And actually, let me just show you a quick graph. These are the the oil futures. This is in January. Let me make it a little bit bigger for you so you can see it. This is in January, hovering anywhere between, depending on which market, um, hovering between $68 and $63 a barrel for crude. Now we're looking at $31 and $34 depending on the market. I mean, oil prices completely falling off a cliff, and American domestic producers cannot compete. And when you're talking about we're already in the middle of a recession, and now we're talking about oil prices falling off a cliff as well, we're talking about a lot of people losing jobs. So the oil companies have been lobbying Donald Trump in order to, have some kind of intervention, do something about this. We need to, stop this so that we don't lose more jobs. Now, the Trump administration has already ordered the Energy Department to purchase up 30 million barrels of crude in order to go into the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. In order to try to bring up prices a little bit, but guys, that's not going to be enough in order to keep prices up where where they need to be, for the long run, in order to keep domestic oil producers in business. So the Trump administration is now looking at some kind of intervention, whether diplomatic or military intervention, in order to bring up the prices of oil. Now, if I'm being honest with you, giving you my take on this, I don't think that this is going to devolve into military conflict, and maybe that's just me being optimistic. But let me give you my reasoning for why I think this is going to be settled diplomatically. The first is, well, there's essentially two reasons for this, and basically, Donald Trump has other people to be worried about. Right, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Something like 1 million people have now filed for unemployment or some kind of benefits because of income loss. And so Donald Trump is worried about the fact that if you raise up oil prices, uh, that's not good, right? Because right now we're talking about sending in checks to a bunch of consumers. If oil prices go up, that means you have to send more money to those consumers. And right now, having low oil prices really seems to be helping the average American. Second thing is, Donald Trump actually has the Defense Department lobbying him in order to tell him, actually, don't intervene in this because this is hurting Russia a lot more. Because what you need to understand is that Russia's economy is significantly less diversified when it comes to the oil industry compared to America's. Russia's economy is, very heavily reliant on natural gas and oil production and basically energy production in order to do this. So the Defense Department sees this as a strategic win for the United States between, this standoff between Saudi Arabia and Russia, because Russia stands to lose a lot. And so, yes, the America's oil companies are going to be clearly hurt. A lot of workers are going to be clearly hurt, but we're in the middle of a, pandemic induced recession anyway. And so I actually think the fact that you have multiple, sort of reasons to not intervene, and then, you also have the reason to intervene, I think that that's actually going to lead to a situation, lead to an outcome where, because of the fact that Donald Trump is focused on dealing with this pandemic right now, Donald Trump is the kind of person who, he does one thing at a time. He thinks about one thing at a time. He's not, some people like to chalk it up to Donald Trump is out here doing three-dimensional chess. I always think, no, Donald Trump is doing one thing at a time. And so I honestly don't think that this is going to escalate to military conflict. Donald Trump is focused on the pandemic right now, and he has other people telling him, don't intervene. And I'd imagine Donald Trump doesn't want to intervene because he'd rather focus on the pandemic. Maybe that's just me being overly optimistic. But I like to think that my optimistic side is the right side. So, but let me know what you think in the comments. Is this going to devolve into military intervention? Is it not going to be? In my opinion, the only way that I see it devolving into military intervention is if Russia initiates military aggression against Saudi Arabia, because I actually do think that the United States probably would intervene to defend Saudi Arabia if Russia invaded, but I don't think that we're going to see that, especially when you have a pandemic also hitting Russia as well, and trying to fight a war. With oil prices fluctuating the way that they are. What I do expect to see in the medium term is we're going to see oil prices fluctuate significantly. So the kinds of massive swings in oil prices is something that I think that we're going to just start seeing, which is, definitely not good for the economy overall. You'd rather have much more stable prices, but I do think that that's what we're going to see in the medium term. In the short term, I think that we'll see prices go up a little bit as the United States continues to purchase more oil for the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in the short run, but in the medium run, I think that as that, sort of tapers off and you can't keep buying oil, I think that we're going to see, oil prices just, take massive swings as negotiations go on. I do think that the United States will get involved diplomatically between Saudi Arabia and Russia and maybe hold some things over their head, but I don't expect any kind of direct military aggression as a result of this. Hopefully my optimistic side turns out to be right. So anyway, if you like the video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button and consider subscribing. Thanks.